Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teacher Jovi, and we are here to present to you about the IELTS. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so for today, we will be discussing to you the agenda. Okay, first, we will be discussing what is IELTS. Okay, the second one is what are the types of IELTS, importance of IELTS, preparation that you need to do in order for you to succeed and to pass the IELTS. We're going to give you as well some example questions. And of course, the last but not the least is how can we help you? Okay. Now, so maybe most of you are wondering what is IELTS? Okay, so IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System. Okay. So here I have collected four short and simple meaning or description what an IELTS is. The first one, okay, it is a high stakes English test for study, migration, and work. So it's very specific, description what an IELTS is. The study abroad, okay, it is a high stakes English test to migrate for study, migration, and work. You and your family specific to work there of what an IELTS is. Study abroad, okay, it is a high stakes English test to migrate study, migration, popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, okay, it is a high stakes. The next one is study migration popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, okay, it is a high stakes. The next one is study migration popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, okay, it is a high stakes. The next one is study migration popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, it is an international standard. The next one is study migration popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, it is an international standard. The next one is study migration popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, it is an international standard. The next one is study migration popular in your family specific to work there of what an English language study abroad, it is an international standard. Work abroad in the near future, then of course employers, professional bodies, and associations accept IELTS. So if you have the IELTS, okay, it's easier for you or it's an advantage for you basically. The third one, okay, it is accepted for Australia, Canada, New Zealand, USA, and the UK. So as what I have mentioned earlier, English speaking countries. And the fourth, okay, IELTS test is available at more than 1,200 locations worldwide. Over 3 million, well, this is just an estimation, but basically over 3 million IELTS tests are taken each year. Okay, so there are two types of IELTS. The first one is academic, and the second one is general training. So, what are the differences? Well, basically, academic from the word itself, academic. So, if you wish, to study or do some training in a foreign country, then basically you need the academic IELTS. But if you wish to migrate in the near future with your family, or if you wish to do some training programs, or you wish to do some work experience or higher education, secondary education, then general training is for you. Okay. What are the purpose, okay, of IELTS? There are four, okay. The first one, okay, for studying. The second one is for work. The third one is for migration, if you wish to live abroad. And the fourth one, well, there are some candidates or there are some people who just want to test their abilities, their four skills. So, Teacher Jovi, what are those four skills? Well, later on, we will discuss it to you thoroughly. Now, maybe you're wondering, where can IELTS take you? You can go to Australia, okay? You can go to Canada. You can go to United States of America. You can go to New Zealand. You can go to UK. And also, it's not only about English countries, okay, English speaking countries, but you can travel the world with IELTS. Basically, if you have a very good background of English, you can confidently travel around the world. Okay. Now, okay, so let me tell you why should you take IELTS? Why is it important for you to take IELTS? The first one is, if you wish to study, work, and live abroad, then this is necessary. The second one, as what I have mentioned just now, you get where you want to go, so you can travel confidently. Maybe you're thinking you have the money, but you have a poor English. So basically, you are not confident to travel. But if you're good at English, okay, then you can travel anywhere you want. Next, prove yourself at home. Well, this is actually, well, some people maybe this is their reason. Okay. So if you pass, if you have the IELTS, okay, then you can be able to get a better job, or else maybe a better, or faster promotion in your home country. And the last one is looking to emigrate. So as what I have told you, if you wish to, to emigrate, immigration requirements, okay, immigration authorities that requires an English language test will accept IELTS. Now, this time we will be discussing to you specifically the IELTS test format. Okay, so all candidates are tested in four categories. Okay, we have listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Okay, now, so yes, let me discuss it to you very fast. There are four parts of the IELTS exam or test. The first part will be listening. So for the listening, it will last for about 30 minutes. Okay. The second one will be reading. Again, it will last for 60 minutes. For writing, third one will be writing. Okay, it will be focusing on your grammar and, of course, task, response, and achievement, such as graph, table, and chart. It will last for 60 minutes. And the last one will be speaking. So here it will test your pronunciation and vocabulary, and it will last for 11 to 14 minutes. Okay. Now, to discuss to you more detailed, okay, let me introduce to you my colleague, Teacher Maui, to discuss about the listening and the reading part. Teacher Maui?
Thank you, Teacher Jovi. Hi, everyone. So, I am Teacher Maui, and I am here to discuss the listening part of the IELTS test. So, listening is the first module in the IELTS test, and it has four sections of increasing difficulty with a total of 40 questions and takes about 30 minutes. So, um, listening usually delves into the skills that you need to live, work, or study in an English speaking environment. So this actually means that you have to comprehend or understand the different types of spoken English in a range of formal and informal contexts. In listening, you would have time to listen, of course, to the audio tracks that they're going to give you. So each section has 10 questions and is heard only once. So they will play it once, but they will never repeat the recording again. So you would have to be attentive to it. And while you are listening, you would have time to look at the questions first before they play the track. And of course, you would have time to check your answers after each section. Now, when you are going to write your answers on the question paper, that would be after the recording is done. And it's much better if you listen first and write it down in the booklet before the question paper or the answer sheet. Okay. And by the end of the listening track, you would have 10 minutes to do that. So at least you would be able to check first if the spelling is correct or if the grammar is correct. So by the end of the test, they will be collecting it and sending it to the answer sheet. What will you have to expect in the audio recording is a range of accents. So when we say a range of accents, it's not just British, North American, and Australian English, but actually they are going to include different accents like Japanese, Korean, but it's neutralized. So the accent is not the influence of the native language isn't that bigger of a deal when you are listening to it, because again they neutralize the accent, but the speed of the recording sometimes changes as we go on. So, like what I said, you would be looking or you would be listening to real world situations, and the topics and tasks are very different when it comes to the different sections. So, it could be about work, it could be about studying in university, it could be about topics such as archaeology or architecture, and you would have to listen for specific information such as dates, places, or names, or maybe time in order to answer the question. So the aim here is is to understand the gist of what they are saying, and you have to understand the speaker's attitude or opinion. Now, this is important because in each of the different sections, there are different speakers. So, for example, in section one, you would have to listen to a conversation between two speakers. Sometimes it's an inquiry, like you're going to listen to a phone call between, of course, an inquirer and a person on the other line. Maybe they would be part of the service or the staff, sorry, and then section two would be monologue. So this person might be talking by themselves. For example, if you are someone touring different visitors from another country, they would be talking about the history of a specific place. Section three is like section one, but more complex. When we say four speakers, they would be discussing, for example, psychology. They would be discussing psychology in the workplace. So it's a very varied when you try to listen. And then in section four, the setup would be like a lecture. So it's like you're in a class in college, and they would be, for example, discussing a subject on architecture or maybe archaeology or chemistry. But all in all, it's a very familiar conversation. The only thing that we have to remember when you are answering the listening test is that since it's a conversation, some of them might have uh, changes in their answers or maybe changes in between the sentences. So it's kind of like watching a movie or listening to a podcast. Okay. Next, please. So the recording is played once, like what I said earlier, and you have to read the question before listening. If when you're given the time, for example, in the recording, they would say you have half a minute to check questions 1 to 5. Read carefully, familiarize yourself, make sure that you know what type of questions they are. Is it asking to complete a chart, or are you going to select a picture, or are you going to take notes of what they are saying, or is it completing a sentence in the middle of a conversation? Okay. Next, please. Okay. So, like what I said, it is a variety of different questions. Sometimes there's multiple choice, there are matching types, classification is also included. Short answer questions and lists are also part of the question. um, Completing a table, flowchart, or maybe a note, or also what do you call this? Sentence completion or summary completion is also the same when it comes to listening. And then labeling a diagram, map, or plan. So again, they would be labeling, or they would be giving you the different question types. Sometimes it's divided into 12, or maybe sometimes it's 10. So it really depends. So reminder, you may get a mix of the listing question types in any section of the test. Yeah. Next, please. Okay. So let's try to listen first to the recording, and then we will just try to answer number one and two. Okay.
You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. At the end of the test, You will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a conversation between a hotel receptionist and a woman who wants to make a reservation. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5.
Okay. So in the first part of the recording, if you can observe, there are instructional recordings or instructional material there. So they would give you time to look at 1 to 5. And then, okay, let's proceed to the recording itself, the conversation.
You will hear a number of different recordings. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning. Welcome to the Horizon Hotel. How may I help you?
I've come in to make a reservation for a friend.
And your friend's name is?
Mackay, Sandra Mackay. That's Mackay.
Thank you. When is she arriving?
She's flying in on the 15th, but she'll stay with me for the first night because we have an early start on the 16th. We're going for a quick trip to the coast, but we should be back on the 18th.
So that's the 18th of this month?
No, sorry, did I forget to say? It's next month, December.
Well, that's getting pretty close to Christmas, but we may have something available. Right, we have 1 or 2 nice rooms left. But how long will she stay for?
A week.
So she'd be checking out on Christmas Day, the 25th.
Is that a problem?
Well, it depends. We don't have a room available for the whole week, but if she didn't mind changing rooms midway through her stay, we could work something out.
Oh, I see.
And if she wanted to extend her stay, that wouldn't be possible, I'm afraid. We're completely booked out from Christmas Day through to New Year.
No, she won't want to extend, and I don't think she'd have a problem with changing rooms.
Good. Well, I'll put her in room 502 to start with, and then she'll have to move to...
Okay. So as we heard, or as we are hearing the conversation, you're allowed to take notes on the test booklet or the question paper that you're provided with. So let's see what are the answers for number 1 and 2. So for number 1, it's 18th, and then we have for number 2 is the 25th. So you can answer number 18 without the th, or you can include the th. Now, if you notice in the first part, she said that she's going to arrive at a different date, but then she corrected it that that the friend is going to arrive on 18th December instead. So those are the one of the tips that you have to look out for. Make sure that you look out for changes in the conversation. So that's one example on how to answer the question in the listening test of IELTS. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Okay.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30.
Okay, so that's half a minute. And then, okay, let's try to skip to the conversation.
You hear the rest of the...
Yeah. So in this part, actually, this is one of the easiest because since it's a flow chart, you would just be following the step-by-step recording, the step-by-step procedure which they will mention in the recording. Yeah. Okay. So that's it for the listening part. If you have any questions, just let us know in the comments. Okay, so let's move on to reading. So after listening, you will be given the reading test, and this is about 1 hour. So the reading test is the second part of the IELTS test, and this is This includes the time needed to transfer your answers to an answer to the answer sheet. So if in the listening test they provide you with 10 minutes and reading with the full 1 hour, you would have to find time to put your answers on the answer sheet. So students are given either an academic or general training material. So the reading test for general training or for reading, or sorry, general training and academic are completely different. Okay. So there are approximately 3 reading passages, but in some cases there are 4. So it really depends the on the number of passages that they decide to give you. But of course, it's still 40 items. And usually these are from books, magazines, journals, or newspapers. And the first 2 reading passages have 13 questions, and the last one has 14 questions. Okay, let's move on. For general training, the texts are more general, of course, or related to work. So when we say related to work, it's not just limited to one area of expertise, but actually they are looking at your skills to, for example, to find information on a poster or maybe a brochure. And usually the general training reading paper has 3 questions or sections rather. Okay, let's move on. So, reading question types, they are kind of similar to listening because they have the matching type as well. But in reading, it's more diverse because you're going to answer multiple choice questions, short answer questions, um, completing sentences, notes, a summary, flowchart, or a table, labeling a diagram. So see, it's the same as listening. Classifying ideas into different categories, matching using the headings. So this is different because you'd be looking for the subject in the heading of a paragraph or the idea of a paragraph, and you would have to match it to a specific what do you call this, to a specific topic. Now, the next one would be deciding if ideas or opinions are correct, incorrect, or not given. So this falls under true, false, or yes, no. Another one would be, let's say, yes, no, and true, false, or true or false are completely different. So they would giving you the same question types, but the function of yes, no, and true or false are different. So you will be able to differentiate more of these once you go into the reading test. Now, the question test has a variety um, of course, they would be testing your ability to do the following. For example, is identifying the writer's overall purpose, following key arguments in the text, identifying opinions and attitudes. So it's kind of like listening, but the good thing about reading is that you can actually look at the text. So if, for example, you're looking at the question and you forgot what the answer is, you can just go back to the text. So they won't be getting the passage. It's what do you call this? You would be just looking at at the passage one, and then you would be going back to your questions again. So this is how you would locate specific information, and then you would distinguish main ideas from supporting details, and lastly, extracting information from a text to complete a diagram, summary table, or a set of notes. So it's kind of easier because again, you would be presented with the reading and with the answers in that reading, and all you have to do is to search for it. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So let's look at the tips here. Make sure you answers the question asked. It might help to read the questions first before you read the passage. So you don't have to read all of it, but rather you will have to find the specific keywords in the question before you move on to answering it. So manage your time. Do not spend too much time on a question you find difficult. Just move on. You can just return to it after you finish the other questions, answer the others, then come back to it, of course. Now, look at visuals and subtitles to get a general idea of what the passage is about. when we say visuals and subtitles, sometimes they give diagrams or maps um, in accompaniment of the passage. But sometimes they don't. So it's a big challenge there. So what you have to do is to identify the topic sentence in each paragraph. So this will give you a clue to the answers. So the topic sentence in a paragraph is usually located in the first part or sometimes in the last part. Now, how would you find this? You use reading strategies such as skimming and scanning to help you to find the answers. So if you do not know the meaning of every single word in that text, it's okay. Try to guess the meaning of the words you don't know from the context. So when you're looking at context, if you're familiar with context clues, you'd be trying to piece together what it really means and how is it used in a sentence. So make sure that your grammar is correct and spelling is correct because they are very strict when it comes to spelling and grammar. Now, make sure to go through your answers to check if they are relevant to the question asked and if the language used is correct. So make sure that it is the exact word or phrase that you're answering in. Okay. Before we go to the next slide, okay, it's okay. Before we go to the next slide, before I forget, make sure that you follow instructions because there are certain instructions. For example, um, give one word only or give two or more words or one or two words. So the instructions are also important because if, for example, you answered correctly, but you answered more than two words, it's going to be incorrect. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So this is an example of a paragraph from a passage, and we extracted this and place it by side with this question. So this falls under completion, summary completion, and the basic tip here is to look for the subject in the question. So we're looking at facial vision. So when you look at facial vision, it is in the second sentence of letter D. Uh, Specifically, it has been given the name facial vision. So there we go. Now, how do we find first the question in number six? Or sorry, how do we find first the answer for number six? We would have to find the synonyms. So when we say synonyms, it's the same meaning of the word. So for example, in number six, in fact, the sensation is more similar to the way in which pain from a blank arm or leg might be felt. So another tip for reading, the answers happen chronologically as you go down the passage. So since we already covered the subject of facial vision, let's go down to the keyword. So we would have to find pain or arm or leg. So you skim and scan it, and here you would see that pain is in one, two, three, four, five, six. Okay, it's in the sixth line of this paragraph. So referred pain in a phantom limb. So limb is another word for arm or leg. And usually the answer is wedged between the two keywords. So we have pain and limb. So the answer for number six is what? Okay, let's check. So it's phantom. So that's another strategy in how to find the answer when it comes to reading. You don't have to read the whole passage, but rather you have to familiarize yourself with the keywords and with what is being discussed. Okay. Um, let's see. So here's another one, obstacles. How can we find this one? So it's after phantom, and then as you go on you would be seeing the different answers. Yeah, so skim and scan, it takes a lot of practice, but once you get the hang of it, reading is going to be easy for you. Okay, so here's another one. I mentioned earlier that we have true or false and not given, but in this case we'll just look at true or false. So this one came from general training. Can we see the passage? Okay, thank you. So this is an example of um, related to daily activities in general training. So for example, we see here these are instructions for moving to a new home. So we have here meter reading, and then this is under a company or a place called Eastern Energy. So they provide instructions. So don't read it. Don't read the passage. You have to go to these two questions reads, customer should inform Eastern Energy of a change of address on arrival at their new home. So in our part, we're talking about arrival at their new home. So we're looking at moving home. So it says here, please give as much notice as possible if you are moving home, but at least 48 hours is required for us to make the necessary arrangements. So in this part, we would be seeing that it's not the same. So if it's not the same, the answer for this part is what? Let's check. So it's false. So this is another strategy. Make sure that the question that you're given is the same, or yeah, you're able to show, or you're able to find what the meaning of sorry, what are the meaning of the sentences you're given. Okay. So that's important. Another one would be customers are expected to read their own gas at or electricity meters. So we have here meter reading, and the answer here is true. Why? Okay. I underlined this. Can we go next? Yeah, so that's another one. And then here we go. So always read the meter from left to right. So this is assuming that you're the one who's going to read it, because that's instructions for you. So that's why the answer for this part is true. Okay. Um I guess that's all. Thank you so much. So I will be giving the floor to Mr. Guilford. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that, Teacher Maui. I hope I'm audible to all of our students here. So once again, good afternoon. I am Teacher Guilford, and I'll be discussing to you the other parts of the IELTS test. So we have the writing part first. So for the IELTS writing part, this is done to test candidates' ability to produce two quite different pieces of writing in a fairly short period of time. So it will test on how you were able to express yourself into writing. So it is divided into two parts, and candidates are allowed 60 minutes to complete both parts. Let's try to check how it works on the next slide, please. So for the academic writing description, we have two writing tasks. So for the first writing task, you will be uh, writing a descriptive report of table or a diagram. Now, the report or the table will be given as part of the test, and all you have to do is describe it. Now, when we get to describe diagrams, we need to make sure that all of its parts are discussed. So basically, the X and Y axis, what are the highest points in the graph, and then we get to compare it to the lowest part. Now, after describing it, we are not just there to write its mere appearance on what's high or low. We need to also explain what is the relationship and the relevance of these graphs into each other. So basically, it's you trying to tell about the relationship of each part in the diagram. But of course, it's limited to only 150 words. So you need to better check on that too. And then for the IELTS writing task 2, you need to respond to an opinion or a problem. Now, this would be given through a writing prompt. So, the writing prompt is something that would put the test on what you think on this certain kind of subject or topic. Let's say, for example, if there are new school policies, what are your thoughts about it? So, that's basically how IELTS writing task 2 works. It would need you to discuss issues, construct an argument, and use the appropriate tone and register. Now, this part of the IELTS writing task is a little bit longer because it would require you to write at around 250 words. Let's try to check on the other parts. Now, for the general training writing description, it's a little bit easier compared to the academic one because here the topics are more, as what it's named, general. So for the writing task part one, you will be asked to write a letter. It could be a semi-formal one or a formal kind of letter. Now, what are important things for you to remember here? For the writing task one, for general training, you need to have at least 3 bullet points. Now, how do we do that one? Try to read first the writing prompt. Again, the writing prompt or the writing instruction will be given to you at the first part of the test. So try to understand it first and try to answer it in a very comprehensive manner by listing down 3 bullet points first before writing it down into a letter so that when you start writing it into a letter, it's more easier for you to convey your thoughts because you have already your points listed down ahead of time. But of course, you need to limit yourself with 150 words. For IELTS writing task 2, you will be asked to discuss a topic and you need to respond to it. So quite similar with the academic training writing description, you'll still be asked to respond to a certain writing prompt asking for your opinion and thoughts about it. But of course, limited at around 250 words too. Next. So, what are the things that we need to remember here? Because unlike the other two skill sets that were discussed a while ago, writing won't give you a multiple choice kind of test. So, it would really require you to exhaust your thoughts. And in order for you to do that one, you need to read the question and understand it first. And of course, go back to the number of words required because in this way, you can already estimate onto how you will be discussing your opinions, your statements, your responses to the given writing prompt or to the given writing instruction. Another important thing to remember is that this part of the test won't actually measure your knowledge. Rather, it would try to measure how you state your opinions. Again, the key word there is state in the way you express yourself. And of course, you need to provide your evidence with that one. It's actually on the manner of giving the argument, which matters in this part of the test. Of course, you don't need to go off topic because that's part of the instructions given in the writing prompt. Support your points. And how do we do that one? Try to go back to your personal experiences, or if not, to the data given in the writing prompt. Also, write neatly and clearly. Check mistakes before you submit your answers, spelling and grammar, of course. Write in complete sentences. And of course, you do not use bullet points in writing your answers. What I mentioned a while ago about the 3 bullet points is that you try to list it ahead in a separate sheet of paper, perhaps, so that you can at least have your draft. And then when you try to write down your letter, at least you have your thoughts come across clearly. And then, of course, do not repeat the same ideas as just to reach the word count needed. Because, of course, people who will be checking that would also know that you're just, beating around the bush. And then next, for task number 2, you need to present your balance points, the pros and cons of the statements that you need to discuss. So you can also list that down ahead of time so that you can also try to balance how you're going to express yourself. Of course, 250 words are required for this part, at least 250 words. Do not use memorized answers because they won't be relevant to the question here. And yeah, the people who would be checking that can easily recognize them. Okay. And then do not also begin by copying the question into your answer because you're not giving actually a relevant answer to that and you're wasting the opportunity of expressing yourself even better. Of course, you need to make sure that your tone adapts to the writing prompt itself. So if it's informal, then try to also switch your tone into an informal one. If it's formal, then try to give a formal tone with the words that you use. And then use linking words to ensure that your ideas flow smoothly. Linking words are furthermore, moreover, and other words like that. So make it easier for you to write. Here's a sample question for us so that you can have a better idea on what you are going to expect for writing task on IELTS. So for this part, you'll be spending 20 minutes. So let me read to you the writing prompt. For example, you live in a room in college which you share with another student. However, there are many problems with this arrangement and you find it very difficult to work. Now, the writing prompt tells us that you need to write a letter to the accommodation officer at the college. And in the letter, you need to, number one, describe the situation. So the situation is already given, but you don't need to copy that. You need to put it in the perspective wherein you were the one living in that room and what was the experience like. That's how you're going to describe the situation. Explain your problems. The problems are not stated in the writing prompt. So you need to have a creative imagination into what were the circumstances that you were dealt with when you were in that certain situation. So you need to think, imagine, and then explain it, and of course justify why is it difficult for you to stay in that room. And then last one, say what kind of accommodation you would prefer. Now this would give you what would you like to happen with that kind of situation that you were in. Of course, you need to always remember how many words are being required from you, and then of course you don't need to write any addresses for that. And then you need to start with the salutation, of course. So that's it. So you just need to have a creative imagination. Let's go to the last part of the IELTS skill set that we have. It's so the speaking test. So this module is the final part of the exam, and it does not need to be taken on the same day as the other modules. It takes the form of a three-part oral interview, which takes between 11 and 14 minutes. Let's try to check more about it with our next slide. So we actually have three parts here. So for the first part, we have the introduction and the interview that would last about 4 to 5 minutes. And then for the next speaking part, we have the individual long turn, which would run at around 3 to 4 minutes. And then, of course, for the two-way discussion, that's 4 to 5 minutes. For the two-way discussion, you'll be given a topic, and then you would just have to converse around on that topic. Now, the examiner would check on how you would be stating your opinions, your arguments, and how you say it. So that's how you're going to be tested, of course. Let's try to check on the tips. Now, unlike the other parts, this part of the test is quite spontaneous. So you need to be very confident and relaxed in this part because it would really show if you are not by the way you stutter, by the way you repeat your words. So it's very important to be relaxed and, of course, try to be friendly. You can also ask the examiner to repeat the question if you did not understand it the first time. This is very important because it would be such a huge mistake and a waste of opportunity also to answer a wrong question. And then if you want to prepare for this type of exam, it would be best to record yourself or practice speaking on variety of topics for 1 to 2 minutes. The topics that would be discussed on a certain exam, like for a speaking exam, are actually found online. So there are a lot of speaking tests available online that is quite similar with the IELTS test. So that would help you actually practice your speaking skills also. For the vocabulary, don't use unfamiliar and long words if you are not sure of their meaning. Sometimes we might have this kind of idea that if you use a very flamboyant word or something that is good to hear, it sounds good, it means that you are an effective speaker. But actually, if you're not sure with the word, it would be best not to use it as to not embarrass yourself also. Of course, you need to remember the exact word you want, paraphrase, and try to express your idea into similar words. Practice making notes. It's best to have 3 notes as an answer to a certain question so that you can have your self expressing to those 3 notes. And then try to develop your answers instead of answering it in just one word. Because, of course, if you're just going to answer a question with one word, it would forfeit or defeat the essence of the speaking test, because it would test the way you express yourself, of course. And it's best not to use slang and abbreviations so that they can be understood completely. And please do not tell the examiner what grade you require or ask how well you have done. This will only cause you embarrassment. Of course, we need to respect the test procedures given at that. And then lastly, do not use memorized chunks of language. Examiners are trained to recognize this. So it would be best to be natural, bring your genuine self, of course, be confident as well. So here's a sample question. Let's say, for example, for part one, the part one of the speaking test includes the introduction and the interview. So in this part of the test, the examiner would be requiring you to introduce yourself, and of course, would be checking your identification. And this is how it looks like actually. So you'll be asked to talk about your hometown or village. So what are the questions that you'll be expecting to answer? Of course, what kind of place is it? What's the most interesting part of your town or village? What kind of jobs do the people in your town or village do? Would you say it's a good place to live? So basically, it would require your personal experience in answering this. So you don't have to really be, um, how do I say this one? To be very knowledgeable into the details of all of the questions, but rather it would be best if you try to bring in yourself also. How do you see your place? What is your favorite part of the place also? So basically, that's how you're going to answer that. And for the accommodation, what kind of accommodation you live in? Kind of residence is that? How long have you lived there? What do you like about living there? And what sort of accommodation would you most like to live in? So basically, it's just about your personal background. So you don't have to be very scared about it. Yes. Next.
Okay, so thank you very much, Teacher Maui and Teacher John, for that wonderful explanation, okay, about the four types of IELTS. So right now, let me discuss to you the band scores. So maybe you're thinking, okay, you're gonna take the IELTS, but you don't know how are you going to be scored. So basically, you'll be scored in four ways. Okay, you have the listening part, writing part, reading part, speaking part, and then they're gonna get the average, and you will get only one band score, which is from 1 to 9. One being the non-user, and number 9 will be the expert user. Okay. So now, I collected top 3 common questions, okay, that you might be wondering or would like to ask. The first one is there a minimum score? Well, there's no such thing as minimum score in IELTS. Basically, there are other people who get 0 because they did not attempt to take the exam or the test. So basically, it is ranging only from band 1, which is non-user, and then band 9 for expert user. Next, what is the passing band score? So as what? Okay, this is a very different one. So earlier, minimum score. So I told you there is no minimum score, but there is a passing score. So for you to be able to get in, okay, you should demonstrate a score of 7. So basically, you just need to get the minimum of 6.5 at each section, because if you're gonna get the average of that, it will be 6.5 and then round off, so it will be 7. Okay, so maybe you're gonna ask, is 7 a good score? Well, yes, that's the ultimate goal of everyone. Okay, most especially for international students. So 7 or 7.5 is an evidence that you can really communicate well when it comes to English. Okay, so that you're good enough for you to join any university courses such as Lit Oxbridge and of course Ivy League institutions. Okay, so now maybe you're wondering, why enroll with us? Okay, I categorize it or I summarize it into 4. The first one is that we make sure that we have competitive, well prepared, okay, and professional educators or teachers. Okay. The next one, very specific, okay, updated and extensive books and materials. So we'll make sure that we'll just use extensive books and materials for you to ace, of course, not only to pass, but also to get a higher band scores. Okay. Next, number three, learn from your comfort zone. So no need for you to, no need for you to prepare. No need for you to go physically in a school, because all you have to do, okay, turn on your computer or laptop, be online, and get ready for the class. That's it. And the last one is user friendly platform. So basically, everyone now, okay, are, I believe, techie savvy. So I know that it's easier for us, to explore. You can just Google it or just YouTube it if ever that you don't know how to operate things. Okay, so basically that's it. Thank you very much for listening to us, and we hope to welcome you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the speaker. It's very good presentation. Thank you very much. And for all students, Ocean Education will offer you the IELTS placement test. This is very important to know which level are you. So according to this level, it will be easier for the teachers to teach you or to learn the material that will give to you. Okay, so I hope all of you here can join with this placement test because it's free for all of you, special for this seminar. Okay. Any question here? Mrs. Jovi, are there any students ask the question to your private room? The chat, I mean.
No, I haven't seen anything.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think it's clear. Okay, thank you very much. Can we close our seminar right now? Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, students. And thank you for the speaker. Bye-bye.